It started with a knock. Not the kind you hear from your front door, but the kind that comes from deep inside something you trusted with your life. A sound so small, you almost ignore it. A faint metallic tick somewhere beneath the hood, barely noticeable at first, until it isn't. Until your dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree somewhere outside Amarillo, while you're hauling 8,000 pounds of steel down a lonely highway at 70 miles per hour. Until the power drops, the steering stiffens, and your truck, the one you took out a second mortgage to buy, suddenly becomes a 2-ton liability coasting toward the shoulder. No warning, no mercy, just silence and smoke. For thousands of Americans in the early 2000s, this wasn't a rare defect. It was routine, and it all traced back to a single engine that was supposed to secure Ford's dominance in America's diesel wars. But instead triggered lawsuits, class actions, federal investigations, and one of the most bitter corporate betrayals in automotive history. Because the engine didn't just fail customers. It turned Ford against its own supplier, and customers against Ford. By 2003, pickup trucks weren't just vehicles anymore. They were identity. Contractors needed them. Farmers depended on them. Long-haul drivers trusted them with their livelihoods. And diesel wasn't optional. It was survival. At job sites across Texas and Alberta, at construction yards in Michigan, at oil fields in Oklahoma, torque wasn't a luxury. It was income. Which is why the arrival of the new Ford 6.0L Power Stroke wasn't just another product launch. It was supposed to be a revolution. Ford had dominated the diesel pickup segment throughout the 1990s with its beloved 7.3-liter engine. Reliable, durable, almost mythological among truck owners. But by the early 2000s, emissions laws were tightening. The Environmental Protection Agency wasn't interested in nostalgia. They wanted cleaner engines, quieter engines, more advanced engines. And Ford knew that if they didn't evolve, someone else would. Especially their biggest rival. General Motors had already partnered with Isuzu to roll out the Duramax diesel, smoother, quieter, more modern. Dodge had the Cummins, an engine with a cult following strong enough to influence truck purchases on its own. Ford needed something new, something powerful but compliant, something modern but familiar. So they turned to the same company that had helped them build their diesel legacy. Navistar International. Together, they began work on what would become the 6.0 Power Stroke, internally known as the VT365. It was more advanced than anything Ford had ever put in a pickup. New emission systems, higher pressure fuel injection, exhaust gas recirculation, a turbocharger system designed for both performance and compliance. On paper, it was the future. In reality, it was a ticking time bomb. At first, the problems were subtle. Owners reported hard starts on cold mornings, rough idle, loss of power under load. Dealerships reassured them it was normal. New technology takes time, they said. Software updates will fix it. Bring it back if it gets worse. But it did get worse. Far worse. Some trucks began stalling in traffic. Others overheated without warning while towing. A few lost power climbing mountain passes with campers in tow, forcing families to crawl onto the shoulder as semis thundered past. Then came the failures that couldn't be ignored. Head gaskets blowing out under moderate load. Oil coolers clogging unexpectedly. Turbochargers sticking mid-drive. Fuel injectors failing before 50,000 miles. And in some cases, engines shutting down completely in the middle of highway traffic. Drivers weren't just frustrated. They were scared. These weren't weekend toys. These were work trucks. Ambulance fleets used them. Utility companies depended on them. Fire departments ran them. Imagine responding to an emergency call and your engine dies at an intersection. That happened. More than once. By 2004, Ford dealerships were overwhelmed. Warranty claims flooded service departments. Mechanics were replacing injectors by the dozens every week. Entire engines were being swapped under warranty at Ford's expense, each one costing thousands of dollars. Ford didn't just have a reliability problem. They had a financial hemorrhage. Every repair, every replacement, every rental truck issued to an angry customer came straight out of their pocket. And customers were keeping receipts, because some of these trucks had been purchased for over $40,000. That's nearly $65,000 in today's money. Life savings for many small business owners. And now their investments were sitting on jacked stands behind service bays for weeks at a time, waiting for parts, waiting for answers, waiting for Ford to admit something was very, very wrong. Online forums exploded with horror stories. Truck owners in Nevada, contractors in Pennsylvania, farmers in Saskatchewan, all reporting the same thing. Breakdowns, downtime, lost income. Some claimed they'd spent more time in loaner vehicles than in their own trucks. Others said they were paying monthly financing on vehicles that hadn't run in weeks. Then came the lawsuits, individual at first, then groups, then full-blown class actions. Customers accused Ford of knowingly selling defective vehicles, of failing to disclose reliability issues, of ignoring safety concerns tied to engine failure at highway speeds, of violating consumer protection laws across multiple states. But behind the scenes, something even more explosive was happening. Because Ford wasn't just blaming bad luck. They were blaming Navistar. Ford claimed the engine's design was flawed. Navistar claimed Ford specifications were unrealistic. Ford said the EGR systems couldn't handle real-world usage. Navistar said Ford's cooling systems were insufficient. And as repair costs soared past $1 billion, the partnership began to fracture. Then it shattered. In 2007, Ford sued Navistar for breach of contract. Navistar fired back with lawsuits of their own. They accused Ford of failing to pay for engines already delivered. Ford accused Navistar of delivering defective products that cost them millions in warranty repairs. The company stopped speaking through engineers and started speaking through lawyers. At one point, tensions escalated so badly that Navistar reportedly halted engine shipments to Ford's Kentucky truck plant. Production lines stalled. Finished trucks sat incomplete. Thousands of jobs hung in the balance. Because of an engine that was supposed to lead Ford into the future. Instead, it dragged them into courtrooms. By the time the dust settled, Ford had spent years fighting lawsuits from both customers and their own supplier. Trust had been shattered, brand loyalty damaged, entire businesses disrupted by downtime and repair costs. And for many truck owners, the name Power Stroke no longer meant power. It meant risk. Eventually, Ford moved away from Navistar entirely, developing its own diesel engines in-house. But the fallout from the 6.0 era lingered. Even today, 2 decades later, forums still debate whether the failures were truly design flaws, or simply the cost of meeting new emissions standards too quickly. Was the engine rushed to market? Did Ford push Navistar too hard? Or did Navistar underestimate how their design would perform under real American workloads, towing across deserts, hauling through blizzards, climbing Appalachian grades in summer heat? The truth remains buried somewhere between legal filings and corporate silence, because neither company ever fully admitted fault. And for the thousands of owners who lost income, time, and trust, that unanswered question still matters. Was this just a flawed engine? Or was it the price of progress in America's diesel arms race? And more importantly, how many companies knew it might fail before it ever hit the road?